Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Imagine the terror. Never knowing where and when the warplanes will hit next. We can't independently verify these videos, but they appear to show the aftermath of airstrikes on the town of Tal Rifat this week. In the Syrian regime's new offensive, which is backed by Russian air power, civilians are once again paying with their blood. Crossing the border into Turkey, we met Abdul Karim Balul, who runs a school in Tal Rifat. The shelling and airstrikes are random, he told us. Homes are destroyed and children's bodies lie in shreds on the ground. He told us he came to ask the Turkish authorities to give refuge to children from the town. But after absorbing more than 2 million Syrians, Turkey's reluctant to let any more in. Syrian regime forces have now nearly encircled the city of Aleppo. The UN fears that 300,000 civilians could be cut off, as they were in the town of Madaya during a siege by the regime. More than 40 starved to death, fearing more starvation in a country that's already exhausted by a senseless war.
Dramatic negotiations between the FBI and the last 4 armed protesters holed up at an Oregon wildlife refuge. Those holdouts saying now that they'll surrender peacefully sometime this morning after a 6-week standoff that included a chase and a shooting that left one occupier dead. But a calm resolution did not look quite as certain in the overnight hours. Listen as negotiators talk with the militia members.
They promised you they wouldn't do this.
Well, they got their guns out there kind of waiting. And, you know, they're telling us to come out.
And they're getting closer and closer. Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore is in Portland on the ground, willing to negotiate a peaceful resolution and exit strategy.
Fiore is in Portland, Oregon on the ground, and she's willing to come here to negotiate with us. You need to stand down. She says you need to stand down. She's coming here to settle this peacefully, not your way.
If they cut our phones off, that probably means we're dead, just so you know that.
Just trust to take a deep breath and don't do anything rash while...
We're not. Our hands are at our sides, our weapons are down. If they come in, if they cut our communications, it's because they killed us.
All of this hours after the feds arrested Cliven Bundy, the father of protester Ammon Bundy, as he got off of a plane in Portland.
There's the enemy.
The nation's top health officials gave lawmakers Wednesday a graphic description of the voracious mosquito behind the Zika virus global health scare.
It can bite 4 or 5 people in the course of one blood meal, meaning it can spread disease quite quickly.
There are now 67 reported cases in 19 states. Alabama and Oregon are the newest additions to the list. 80% of people who get Zika don't show symptoms, but the virus has been linked to a rare birth defect which causes head and brain abnormalities.
We're working around the clock to find out as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to inform the public and to do everything that we can do to reduce the risk to pregnant women.
President Obama has asked for an emergency $1.8 billion to fight Zika. But some Republicans criticized the administration for previously cutting a tropical disease program by 15%.
The administration's disregard for this danger is inexplicable.
The CDC upgraded its Emergency Operations Center to a Level 1 status this week, freeing up hundreds more employees to work on combating the virus. Mark Albert for CBS News, Capitol Hill.
On our southern border, we are now seeing a new wave of immigration from Mexico. But what's notable is who is making the journey and why.
Every day, Cubans cross this border bridge from Mexico into Laredo, Texas. Since 1966, the Cuban Adjustment Act has guaranteed asylum to refugees fleeing the communist regime. They qualify for a green card after a year and a day, and citizenship 5 years later. But now they're afraid the thawing of diplomatic relations will end that special protection. Jaime Acosta says, "How was I supposed to get here if they changed the law? It would have been impossible." Most Cuban refugees no longer try to reach Miami on makeshift rafts in the Florida Straits. Capture and the currents are both risky. They now fly to a Latin American country like Ecuador, then spend months making a 2,000-mile trip on land through a half-dozen other countries before reaching the Texas border. 51,000 arrived here last year, 68% of them through Laredo.
It's a whole transnational human smuggling operation.
Jorge Duwani studies Cuban migration patterns at Florida International University.
Well organized?
Very well organized, and it's supposed to be the second most profitable illegal network after the illegal trade business.
Most head to Miami. At this refugee resettlement office, we met Andres Hernandez. His trip here from Cuba took 8 months. He told us it was a lot of stress, a lot of days without eating, but worth it to him and other Cubans, immigrants desperate to start fresh in America and worried they may soon join the back of the line with everyone else.
The day has been cold and the night getting colder in the Northeast. In many places, conditions aren't just unpleasant, they are dangerous.
Sudden wind gusts and blinding snow helped cause this massive 50-vehicle pileup on the Pennsylvania interstate this morning. Authorities say at least 3 people died.
Just sounded like 2 bombs went off.
Truck driver James Steffi had never seen anything like it.
And it's just total destruction.
Further south in Fayetteville, North Carolina, the winter wreaked havoc on roads not accustomed to snow and ice.
Once you get 3 inches, it's gridlock.
In Scranton, Pennsylvania, a busted water main combined with frigid temperatures left homes frozen in time.
The city is facing some of the coldest temperatures and wind chills we've seen in the last 20 years.
In New York, Mayor Bill de Blasio warned residents the area is facing single-digit temps and up to 30-mile-an-hour winds, especially dangerous for the homeless.
How many people do you estimate are at risk?
We have 3,000 to 4,000 people who we know broadly from the research that has been done have spent time on our streets on a regular basis.
We have street sheets that have information about places where you can go, come indoors, maybe get a meal somewhere.
This is one of 160 outreach teams trying to make sure those living on the streets are sheltered from wind chills expected to reach 25 degrees below zero tonight. Stephen Russo works with Goddard Riverside Community Center.
The last thing that we want to see is somebody die on the street. People are in tremendous risk when it is this cold.
The start to the day was pure Francis, out of the Popemobile and into the crowds to greet the young and the frail. The Pope is calling himself a missionary of mercy and peace. His 5-day trip will address the violence and corruption that plague the world's second most populous Catholic country, as well as the plight of migrants heading to the U.S. 9 Popemobile miles later, his first official meeting was at the National Palace, and a blunt admonition for the Mexican authorities.
Para la corrupción.
Work for the common good, or society becomes fertile soil for corruption, the drug trade, violence, and human trafficking. That resonates with ordinary Mexicans. More than 100,000 people have been killed in drug violence over the last decade, and some 26,000 are missing.
Sino que exigen un coraje profético.
At a meeting with Catholic bishops, the Pope called on the Church in Mexico to show prophetic courage in the face of extreme violence, rather than hide behind inoffensive denunciations.
The United Nations has released a report showing that civilian casualties in Afghanistan last year rose to their highest level since 2009. A total of 3,545 civilians were killed in 2015 as a result of war, with another 7,457 wounded. The figure marks a 4% increase in civilian casualties year on year. The UN said 10% of the casualties were women, up 37% from a year ago, and 25% were children. That's up 14%. Anti-government elements, including the Taliban, caused 62% of all civilian casualties. Another 17% were blamed on pro-government forces, and 2% on international military forces.
Turkey has shelled Kurdish fighters in northern Syria and demanded they withdraw immediately from the area. Several targets were hit in the border town of Azaz, where Kurdish YPG fighters, backed by Russian bombing raids last week, seized an airbase from Syrian rebels. Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu says the Kurds were harassing Turkey. The YPG controls most of the Syrian side of Turkey border, and Ankara views the group as an extension of the PKK, which has waged a decades-old insurgency in southeast Turkey.
American jobs are increasingly rotting from the inside out. MarketWatch reports there are now more than 260,000 robots working in U.S. factories. Orders and shipments for robots in North America set new records in 2015. According to industry trade group Robotic Industries Association, a total of 31,464 robots, valued at a combined $1.8 billion, were ordered from the North American companies last year. The most popular jobs for these robots were industrial, including coating and dispensing, material handling, and spot welding. Blindsided by technological gains and a sick fascination with artificial intelligence, the leftist media spews out reports glorifying an unstoppable race towards the demise of the one thing that has kept America humming along as a global innovator for close to 240 years. Skilled labor. The numbers of apprenticing electricians, welders, machinists, etc. have been dwindling in the past 10 years. Forbes reported in 2012, 53% of skilled trade workers in the U.S. were 45 years and older, and 18.6% were between the ages of 55 and 64. The Tampa Tribune reports Ken Simonson, chief economist at Associated General Contractors of America, said the industry is hiring people at quite a strong clip. But at the same time, contractors are saying that they can't find the folks with the skills they want. They're having to pull in people from other industries or people that haven't done it before, which isn't always something you can make do with. It's blatantly obvious that a combination of fundamental factors are leading to a third world future for the United States of America. The millennial generation is simply not interested in a vocational education. Projects will simply not be built in the future or may take much longer as skilled labor is sparse. Also, the unchecked and unethical destruction of American working families, as American companies like Disney have American workers train foreign workers on temporary H-1B visas to replace them. The New York Times reported about 250 Disney employees were told in late October that they would be laid off. Many of their jobs were transferred to immigrants on temporary visas for highly skilled technical workers who were brought in by an outsourcing firm based in India. Over the next 3 months, some Disney employees were required to train their replacements to do the jobs they had lost. One former worker said, "I just couldn't believe they could fly people in to sit at our desks and take over our jobs exactly. It was so humiliating to train somebody else to take over your job, I still can't grasp it." Of course, NAFTA, GATT, Chorus, and the impending sovereign-destroying Trans-Pacific Partnership will and have destroyed millions of American jobs and led cities like Detroit, for example, to ruin in their wake. The robots aren't coming. The robots are here, and it won't be long before automation completely wipes out everything from cashiers to call center operators, taxi drivers, real estate agents, accountants, journalists, internet comment section trolls, etc., etc. It's abundantly clear the New World Order global governance that has established itself while we were on holiday or working our third job is on the verge of wiping out the middle class and converting the remaining populace into a peasant class. We have all been subjected to a soft, slow war, guaranteeing our demise for decades. Of course, you were never told.